So according to Malaysian authorities, Flight 370 has been found. Not really. You see, they don't have any physical hard evidence at all. But they do believe without a reasonable shadow of a doubt, that's the claim, that the plane dropped somewhere and crashed in the Indian Ocean. No hard evidence, no physical evidence, but it's been found in order to quell fears and to quell the conspiracy theories, which I believe to be fact, or more facts at this point than what we've been receiving from the Malaysian government, authorities, or the intelligence community at large around the world. Now, until we have and find physical evidence, there is no plane. It's simply and only conjecture. Now, the latest report, according to the mainstream media, that's gotten, by the way, this entire story wrong from the get-go, literally step by step by step by step. Every oil slick, every sighting, every alleged satellite image has failed, has been erroneous, has been wrong. Now says that the plane dropped somewhere in the Indian Ocean near the Maldives, near that resort area a lot of honeymooners like to go and get a nice suntan, bake out in the sun. That's what we're expected to believe. And a company, a British company, yeah, like that could be trusted. I mean, if you trust Piers Morgan, then I guess you trust this company, Inmarsat, which says that they now have, allegedly, satellite images, which makes no sense at all because, again, wasn't that the whole case? Wasn't that the whole point about Flight MH370? There was no satellite images. Remember how it went off course on its way from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing, then disappeared in its last known location? Remember, that's what the intelligence community told us. But now they expect us to believe that a British company named Inmarsat has images and satellite footage and data from space that says the plane crashed in the Indian Ocean near the Maldives. Again, this makes no sense at all. They must think you're dumb. And you know what really pisses me off? That they're blasphemizing the victims' deaths, alleged deaths. I actually think that they are still alive. The victims' family members have every right to be outraged, and I'm surprised they are not rioting in the streets. Of course, I'm almost positive that they'll launch a massive lawsuit against Malaysia Airlines and the intelligence agencies around the world, as they probably should, rightfully so. Again, the deaths, or the alleged deaths of these victims, the victims themselves that I believe are still alive, are being blasphemized by the mainstream media, the federal government, the Malaysian government, Malaysian authorities, and the intelligence community at large around the world. Again, connect the dots, folks. None of this makes sense. The fact that 20 members, 20 employees of Freescale Semiconductor out of Austin-based Texas that works and sells to the DoD, the Department of Defense, high-level tech executives that work and engage in cloaking technology, the technology of invisibility for war, for airplanes, for tanks, suddenly it happened to be the people, the victims on this plane that disappeared. Again, all of this is just a claim. You know what? I claim the plane was abducted by aliens. Don't believe me? Well, it's beyond a reasonable shadow of a doubt. See how that doesn't make sense? There's no hard evidence. There's no physical evidence. And if they do find the plane, not only do I want to see the plane, but the victim's family members should also ask to see the bodies. Now, there's the possibility that if everyone died and it actually did go in the ocean, that some of the bodies will probably and already have been lost. Maybe they've been eaten by sharks or something like that. But I would suggest that we could at least find two. And not only would we want, and I would like to see two bodies, I would also like to see DNA sampling matching the genome and the genetic code to the actual victims. And I want that presented to the family members of the victims, and I want the victims of the family members to corroborate that to the public and through the media and hopefully here at AMTV. You know, one of the few, if not the only, truth-based media platform on the planet today. Again, none of this makes sense because, again, there was motive to hijack this plane, which is what I think happened. I think that the authorities, because they need to quell conspiracy theories now, they need to quell reality, they need to quell and contain the fears, the growing fears that after 2 weeks, a Malaysian airline, a commercial airliner, has gone missing. You know, if this was an act of terrorism, if this was a really well thought out plan, as we've discussed before, they'd be equipping this thing with a nuclear bomb and ramming it into a city, God forbid. Ramming it into an American or European city or really anywhere around the world. You know, if the terrorists at work here, either inside the federal government itself or outside of it, maybe a nefarious regime or a terrorist group, if they were smart, they'd capture a second plane at this point. Could you imagine the fears then? Could you imagine travel would just grind to a halt? I mean, who would want to board a plane then if two planes could disappear in thin air? Again, the plane's been found, folks, beyond a reasonable doubt. There's just no hard, credible evidence. So basically, it hasn't been found. It's all a lie. Again, there was motive here. There was motive, and there's been intense and very real speculation surrounding the pilots themselves. Not only two Iranians that have allegedly boarded the plane through a mysterious person who paid cash for tickets illegally named Ali. A lot of that propaganda, I think, just to displace Iran in the Western agenda to destroy their credibility and destroy their image. Again, the pilot's family, one of the pilots, who, by the way, also had a flight simulator in his house and just liked to fly airplanes when he wasn't flying airplanes, also had his family members, his wife and kids, leave his upscale Kuala Lumpur home compound one day before the missing plane took off and then disappeared. And again, remember, there were no satellite images until now. Until they needed to quell fears and they needed to quell speculation and they somehow needed to put it to bed. Of course we know they're lying to us. Of course we know this is bullshit because the facts don't add up. And that's the point. There is no facts outside of what we already know. There is no tangible, credible evidence. Until we have that, until we have bodies, until we have DNA sampling, we have nothing. What we have is the largest conspiracy, flight conspiracy, since 9/11. I suggest the planes were hijacked. I suggest the people are still alive. I suggest this is part of a much more severe, sinister agenda. And leg 2 of the missing flight is yet to begin. I'm Christopher Green, hard-hitting and in your face as usual. Get this out everywhere, make it viral, hard-hitting and in your face.